Hello, Dominic Tropher again, and welcome to another video. This time it's part 3 of the mini-series of Nintendo add-ons that were released worldwide for the home consoles. The last one was about the Super Game Boy for the SNES, and this time it's about the Transfer Pak for the Nintendo 64, the Nintendo 64 Transfer Pak. Now, this is of course different to any other add-ons that you've ever seen or used in the past because of the fact of how it looks. What the Transfer Pak was that it allowed you to transfer data from Game Boy or Game Boy Color games to its Nintendo 64 counterpart. And this is actually something new at the time because no one had ever done this sort of stuff, and that really made it good. Now, what you did was, as I said, how you connected it. Sorry, just the wire. Was, of course, you got your Nintendo 64 controller. Now, of course, you know, it has this expansion port on the back of it, and that's just how it connected. It looks a bit odd, but I think it looks really, really cool. So it does. And what it allowed you to do was a lot of cool things when it came to transferring data from the Game Boy or Game Boy Color game to the Nintendo 64 version. A lot of games allowed you to transfer like sort of characters or like little pieces of details from the Game Boy Color game to the Nintendo 64 game. And that was very revolutionary. But it's very underrated, that's the thing. Now, most people always say that it's more of an add-on, like a transfer thing for the Pokemon games. That's actually not true. There's actually a total of near 18 games for this, but only 5 of them were actually released worldwide. So, let's get this. So the 2 games I've got my Nintendo 64 there, if you're wondering. Is Pokemon Stadium, which of course is like the most popular one for it, and Perfect Dark. Now, I'll put Perfect Dark in here, like that. Now, what this allowed you to do was, with the Transfer Pak, you could actually add more features. Now, you actually, as I said, to get these features, you needed the Perfect Dark Game Boy cartridge to get it to work, and that's how you did it. So it was pretty long, so it was. But apart from that, it made you realise that you could actually use different games with this. Now, the other 2 games, the 5 games that we got, actually, like all this. Sorry. So, the total 5 games we got that actually supported the Transfer Pak was Pokemon Stadium, of course, Perfect Dark, Pokemon Stadium 2, what else was it now? Mario Golf and Mario Tennis. And with all them, of course, you needed the Game Boy Color or the Game Boy version to use these extra features. You couldn't just plug it in and that was it. You needed all these features. You needed all the other counterparts to get it to work. Like for example, as I said, with Pokemon Stadium. Actually, this isn't the case. So let's get to look at it. Even though I mentioned it in the last video, but previous one. You need these 2 to get it to work, and these 2 as well, Perfect Dark. Now, one thing that was a bit of a flaw with the Transfer Pak was that you couldn't actually directly play Game Boy or Game Boy Color games through the Transfer Pak, on the Nintendo 64, and that was a bit of an interesting flaw with it, that you couldn't do the same thing with the Super Game Boy, which was for the SNES. That you couldn't just directly do that. Now, with Pokemon Stadiums 1 and 2, it allowed you to play the Game Boy and Game Boy Color versions through Nintendo 64 through the Transfer Pak and the Nintendo 64 on the screen, but you couldn't really replay other games, which was a bit of a downfall. But it would have been interesting to do that, because a lot of people didn't actually buy this. Most people just thought, oh, it's for the Pokemon games, I'm not going to bother. If that's all it's for, I won't bother. But, as I said, there are other games for it. Us in Europe and England, we got the 5 of them. Same with America, they got the 5 of them. But also in Japan, they had like an extra 12. So there were actually near 18 games for this add-on, which is really interesting that it lasted that long to get that amount of games. Now, a lot of people may think, why would you say this is very underrated? Because of the fact no one really used other games for it, apart from just the Pokemon ones. That's all you can really use for it. With Mario with Mario Tennis and Mario Golf, when you connect to the Game Boy Color version with the Transfer Pak, you actually get to use the characters from the Game Boy Color versions with the Nintendo 64 counterpart. So you get extra things, features, and little details that make it expand on your experience. And this is why I think when it comes to this sort of stuff, especially with the Transfer Pak, it's better to actually use the official hardware rather than for example, the Virtual Console on the Wii and Wii U. Don't get me wrong, I like those two, but with those you cannot use the Rumble Pack or the Memory Pack even. So it does lose the good features and the hardware from it. Now, one thing, just going back about a Nintendo 64 Game Boy player, was that Nintendo never officially released one. Now there are unofficial ones, such as the Game Booster, which was released over in England, and you have the GB Hunter, which is like the American version. Now, the problem with those two is that, just like with this, it's actually through emulation, and it's actually bad emulation, unlike the Transfer Pak. It's absolutely inferior, rubbish, and people give it a lot of backslash. Now, I'd like to get one, but I'd probably just keep it for collectability. Now, the way that works is that you have 2 slots on it. On the top, you've got one for the Game Boy, or Game Boy Color. I think it's just Game Boy. And then on the side of it, you've got a slot for the cartridge slot for the Nintendo 64 to actually get past the security chip. And that's the thing. But it is really, really terrible. That's the problem with those, is that they're actually the worst thing to ever use. And honestly, I would choose the Transfer Pak over those two, even though you cannot directly play Game Boy or Game Boy Color games on it. But it was still a pretty good thing. But it's a shame that Nintendo never did that. I honestly would have loved to have seen one like a Game Boy player for it, which is a shame. But as I said, shame about it is the reason a lot of games never supported this. Sorry, the reason there's a low amount of games that supported this is because, unlike the Super Game Boy and the Game Boy player, which used official hardware, this used emulation, which is a shame. But apart from that, it's a really good add-on, and it's very underrated, and these are really, really cheap to find, so they are. But as I said, it's the nearest to a kind of Game Boy player for the Nintendo 64 made by Nintendo, but it's a shame. Now, I'll go about my thoughts about this. Now, I remember when this released for Pokemon Stadium back in 2000, and I remember it, but I wasn't really interested in it, because at the time I was a huge Pokemon fan, even though I've been mentioning it all the time, but I played a lot of the Red version on Game Boy, and I thought it looked really, really interesting, because it does look like a little spaceship. Like, not offending any Thunderbird fans out there, I like it, but apart from the new stage. But we're not getting into that, apart from, just get rid of that. It looks like some sort of like spaceship, like Thunderbird 4 or something. It looks really, really cool. And I actually didn't get one until last year because I like the Nintendo 64, and usually when people get a game console from like 10 or 20 years ago, they start recollecting for it. So that's what I was doing. I thought, you know, I remember this, but I never actually used one. So I thought, I'll get one. And that was the thing. But it really makes you think what the hardware could have been in that. Because people may think that it's going down two different paths, or just going down in entire path, you know, going down a different path entirely. Because you go from the Super Game Boy for the SNES, and then you go to the Transfer Pak, which a lot of people don't really count as a predecessor. But the Transfer Pak is not like the Super Game Boy or the Game Boy Player for that matter. You know, it's an add-on and a device that allows you to transfer games from portable games to the home games, and that really made it one of the best pieces of hardware ever made. And it's a shame that Nintendo never really utilised this for Nintendo 64. They were over, like I said, because they actually did have a few successes. Like I said, Nintendo created the link cable, connect to a Game Boy Advance and connected to the GameCube on the ports, controller ports. Though we had a few games that supported the DS in, like, I think infrared or something, and so far the Wii U is done the same with, so it is doing the same with the 3DS, because so far there's only 2 games that support the Wii U 3DS connectivity. The first one is Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, and the second one is Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Sorry, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, if you know what I mean. But at least that Nintendo did continue it on in different consoles. But they don't really utilise it that much, which is a shame. But if anyone actually wants to get one of these, they are really cheap. Especially even if you've got one. Even if you don't use it, it's still a nice piece of, you know, hardware to have. But it's still, you know, worth owning if you want one. Well, thank you for watching my video. Hope you enjoyed about the review of the Nintendo 64 Transfer Pak. The next one will be about the Game Boy Player for GameCube. So look out for that one. Thank you for watching. See you later. Bye.